hear music. In addition to hear the music, it's also accompanied by a sort of color show, like colors in there. Or there was a case that was noted a few years ago of a famous chef, or a chef who tasted shapes, who would, in his cooking, would have to, as he would cook, would be thinking things like, this chicken tastes, sort of pyramidal today, where it's kind of tasting like a funnel, or that, things that to the rest of us wouldn't make a bit of sense. But he is trying to put into words real experiences he is having, and the people with near-death experiences or mystical visions like you had are having that same difficulty. But now there's ways to help them with this. We really can fix this. And to do it, we're going to do it live on www.universityofheaven.com. Really, we will. And for that reason, Robert, I want to thank you so much for helping us with this.
Well, I'm happy to help. I saw that there was a little video on your website. You and Dr. Melvin Morse, in my recollection, was the one who pioneered children's near-death experiences, right? I mean,
that's right.
These are the two epic pioneers in this field, and they were trying to talk about what happens after death. Because what happens right after death and in the short period thereafter has been my 50 years of study. I would have kept wanting to raise my hand and say, I could answer. But, wisely, you didn't try to come up with ideas. I have talked with people who had one NDE, and they were sure they knew everything about everything. And I respected very much the fact that you said, I don't want to be Melvin. He was the one who said, you said, I don't want to be Raymond Moody forever, and therefore I hope there's reincarnation. And indeed there is. There's abundant evidence of that. But he said that we just sort of merge back into source. So we do, but there's sort of an eon in between, and I wanted to talk about that, but unfortunately I couldn't because you were on a video.
Well, I got to say though, see, I'm on the other end of the spectrum from that. The people who came back from the NDE thinking that sure they knew everything. I have been quite sure from the time I was literally 7 or 8 years old that I will never know much of anything. I mean, I am reconciled.
If you're curious, that's good. Yes, that's the way we all should be. And skeptical.
And it's the most fun. It's the most fun. It is.
Matter of fact, Raymond, who coined the term near-death experience, I've known him, I guess, over a little bit over 6 years now. But he is only in the time that I've known him that he has felt comfortable saying, "Okay, I think I may actually now be willing to say that, conclude that consciousness survives," because he has kept his mind open throughout his career. Because we really don't know. I mean, there's so much we really don't know, and it's wonderful not to know, because it's from that position of not knowing that we get to learn so much more.
But the problem is, though, that the scientists really will not look at this. There is plenty of information.
Oh, it's changing, though, Roberta.
It's changing a little bit, Roberta.
A little bit. It's like baby steps.
But that's okay, because that's okay.
Max Planck, he said in his lifetime that he was so sad that his biggest discovery, literally the biggest discovery of the 20th century, was the fact that consciousness has to be pre-existing and continuously existing. And they ignored that. They thought they gave him a Nobel. He was happy with that, but they ignored that. And he thought, well, science advances by deaths. But how many generations have we had since he died in the early part of the 20th century, for heaven's sake? This is sad. I'm sorry. I get frustrated by it. And I love your large spirit that says, well, I still love science and I still think it's going to work and they'll be able to figure it out. I bless you for that. I'm just a little more skeptical of them at this point.
Well, no, I don't think, like I said, I don't think it is scientifically determinable, but I think that's all right, because that's always the process has been, that it goes through a conceptual phase first, and then it's scientific, and that's where I see it happening. But in the meantime, like Lisa said, I give up. For example, one of the wonderful physicians we're going to interview on our forthcoming webinar series is we're going to interview him with the patient whose life he saved. And this is just the most phenomenal. It's basically a wonderful young graphic artist was in a horrific car crash, and his wife was instantly killed, and as I remember, one of his children killed. And he himself had a leg. He lost his leg and came very near to death and had a profound near-death experience. But reluctant as most, if not many, if not most patients are reluctant to share this with their physicians for obvious reasons. And back in the 60s and 70s, when I was first interviewing people who had this, many of them remarked that they had tried to tell their doctor about it, and had been rebuffed, or even had tried to tell their ministers about it, had been rebuffed. So people are justifiably a little, reluctant, but he did describe this experience to the trauma surgeon who saved his life, and the trauma surgeon, to make a long story short, became very solemn and acknowledged that during the procedure he sort of knew that, I guess, that the artist wasn't going to die, because during the procedure he had a conversation with the patient's wife who had been killed in the accident. And as I gather, as this doctor opened up about it, so did the nurse who was in the procedure acknowledge that although she did not see the wife, that she did, I believe, hear her. So I give up. But I haven't integrated this yet, because there's a lot of things to figure before we can put this into some generally acknowledged form that will make it stand up against every objection, because that's the only fun way to do it. You know something? I'm just sorry to say this, Roberta, because it sounds almost crass, but I have never had any noble purpose from my work. I am delighted and honored and eternally grateful that so many people have written to me and have said to me, that my work changed their lives and comforted them in grief, and that, helped them understand their own experience, or understand that other people had it too, and so on. And all those things are just wonderful. And at the same time, I say that the reason I wrote it was that I just thought, I'm so curious about this. I didn't have any noble purpose. I just thought, wow. And not only was it wow, it was also wow since the time of Plato. And how in the world had the modern world missed this? But of course, I realized immediately was I knew immediately that the situation I was in consisted of a number of vectors. Number one was the happy lack of religious indoctrination that I had experienced in my life, and actually grew up with an attitude of not exactly hostility, more like incomprehension and like, what is this all about toward religion? And kind of condescending, that these people are deluding themselves and whatever. And then the idea of an afterlife was double that. But see, my wake-up call was reading Plato's Republic, and Plato, by the way, is still one of my heroes. I mean, this is one amazing guy. And so then Dr. Ritchie, like I said, so I was doing this because it was such a fascinating subject to me personally. I wrote that. I would have written that book. I mean, I was writing all that, but not with any intention of publishing it, actually. I write down everything. I've got notebooks and notebooks and notebooks, but I didn't have the intention of, doing anything good. But I'm so glad it happened that way. But I was just, to me, what is the most fun is finding out what is. And the best way to do that is to be rigorous in your reasoning process. Because if you just sort of put some flimsy argument together with something you want to believe anyway, or already believe, or whatever, and just really playing around with it, what's the point of that? Because of self-deception, we know we're doing it, right? So we're always uncomfortable. But if you subject it to a really rigorous, rational process, and I know how to do that because I was trained in analytic philosophy and logic, was what I brought to this. And so, for that reason, it stood up. And but to say that, I mean, there's a lot of false claims made about this. But the reason that's bad is because the honest to goodness, rigorous claims are just astonishing in themselves. They really are. I mean, there's no it's like incredibly, to try to exaggerate this. This stuff is sensational in itself. Any exaggeration just makes it ridiculous. I mean, the utter stark reality of it is truly mind-boggling.
Well, now we're approaching the end of our time together in about 10 minutes, and I just wonder, Lisa, can you tell me, what do you think about this university? What do you hope will come out of it?
Oh, I hope that we'll be able to give people, information, but also some sense of inspiration and comfort. And for me as a linguist, working through the Final Words Project, I have very tangible, concrete material that opens up doors that I had never imagined. I'm that kind of person. I'm a really concrete, down-to-earth person, and I don't think I'm the only person like that, And it's so exciting to see through very tangible tools and perspectives that there is something beyond this world. And for me, it's just been extremely comforting. And I was talking to Raymond about this I think last week, that I used to be really afraid of flying on airplanes. This is just a detail. But now, I have no problems because I feel that sense of comfort, for example. So I think one thing is comfort. Another thing is information. I think learning is the most exciting thing, and it sounds like, from what I've heard from people who have had near-death experiences, that learning is something that we take to the afterlife with us. And,
completely, we do.
That's what we hear from so many people. And then my other strong motivation and excitement about this project is Raymond Moody is getting older. And he has midwifed or mentored so many people, including myself. He is an extremely generous person, as well as being one of the most brilliant people I've met. And the University of Heaven is going to be an opportunity for all of his associates and protégés to come up. And for the first time, he'll be interviewing them, or not the first time, but usually he gets interviewed. He'll be interviewing people about the work that he so loves. And he blazed the trail, as you said at the top of the show. He opened this door for all of us. So I'm really